Welcome to the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay. This is your positive path for spiritual living.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, George. Amazing. Thank you, Anthony. You know, I still remember the first time I walked into 411, our old building, and heard this voice coming through the sound system. And I looked on the stage, and I couldn't see where it was coming from. And it was coming from you. And it continues to come through you every time you bring those beautiful harmonies into sync with the rest of the singers. Thank you for being so multi-talented. And thank you, Dale, for pulling us all together. It's so always good to have George back. Greetings, everybody. We are in week number 5 of studying The Universe Has Your Back. We all want to feel like somebody has our back, don't we? When the universe has your back, you have the ability to transform fear to faith. Those are the words coming to us from Gabrielle Bernstein in our 6-week study of her amazing book. This morning we're going to be touching on a new way of being, a new way of being. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's not a new way of being. I called the talk that because she references it in her book, but it's really a very old way of being. It's your original way of being, and it's beautiful. More on that in a moment, but before I get into my message, I want to just take a moment to praise our virtual choir. Were they not amazing this morning? Absolutely. I want to thank Dale for pulling it all together as he's done so many times now to bring these virtual performances to you. I also want to thank Charles Dye, our magnificent sound man who's been with us for so many years. I want to thank the leads, in particular our dear friend and woman with the voice of an angel, Terry DeSario, Rachel Davis, who not only sings beautifully and plays beautifully for us from week to week when we're in person, but also did all of the video work to put it together, the editing. Very time-consuming process, and we're so grateful for her. Also, Ruth Palmieri and Sammy Rodriguez were singing the leads on that. So thanks to everybody. It takes a village, and we've got a beautiful one right here in our music ministry. I also want to take a moment to say, happy birthday, Reverend Juan. You know, I've told you many times, and I'll tell you again, we're so blessed to have his presence in this ministry. The genius and the brilliance that he brings every week to us. Especially want to acknowledge his family, and they are a beautiful family indeed that delivered the daily word for us this morning. His husband Tom and his delightful young son Lucas. So happy birthday to Juan and many, many more. It's always a joy to celebrate that man's day of arrival on this particular episode of his human journey. So somebody asked me the other day, Chris, how long does it take you to write a talk to present to us on a Sunday morning? And I had to answer honestly. I said, about 66 years. Now, without divulging my age, I'll just tell you that every talk I deliver to you is a composite of years and years of material. I've been writing the talk I'm sharing with you this morning for a very long time. Why does it take so long? Because I have to learn the material myself. And as you've heard me say before, it's a lifetime of learning. It's still ever and always underway. Ask a question of you this morning, and I want you to give me an honest answer. How are you doing? How are you doing? Are you anxious? Are you calm? Are you depressed? Are you enthusiastic? Are you angry? Are you happy? Are you betrayed? Are you trusting? Are you worried, or are you confident? You see, it's important to check in with ourselves and each other. We often ask that question, how you doing? And we'll say, well, I'm doing fine. But really and truly, how are you doing? Because how you are doing and how you are feeling is going to let you know about the choices that you're making in your life. When you feel really good, you're making choices for one of two things: love. If you're making choices that gravitate toward fear, you're not going to feel so good. You're going to feel bad. You see, every one of us has this magnificent emotional monitoring system within us that will let us know the content of our consciousness, of our thoughts and our feelings in any given moment. Gabby Bernstein says in the pages of this incredible book that if she could sum it up in just a few words, 2 words to be precise. Those 2 words would be choose love. All these pages it takes to get us to realize the importance of choosing love, of making love our number one priority. Now, love is a word that is used in so many different contexts in our world today. But I think at the end of the day, we all know what love is, and we most certainly know what love isn't. We know when we're aligned with love, and we know when we're not aligned with love. We know if the feelings that we are experiencing are being generated from an awareness of love and ourselves as being the essence of love or not. Now, I could ask you if you want to build a world of love. I think you'd probably say, yeah, I'd like to build a world. I'd like to contribute to a world. I'd like to wake up in a world of love every morning. The only way we're ever going to accomplish this, my friends, is one single little tiny choice at a time. You see, we want this big revelation of love in our lives and in the world. And the only way that's ever going to happen is through a variety of individual, tiny, moment-by-moment, day-by-day choices to gravitate toward love. I invite you to join me in saying to yourself right now, and every morning of your eternal life when you awaken, I want to be an ambassador of love. Today, I want to be an ambassador of love. See, there's 2 ways that we can be in this world. One way is fear-driven. When you're fear-driven, you're looking at conditions, external in nature. You're making judgments about those conditions, and you are oftentimes condemning those conditions. In essence, you don't feel so hot. You don't feel good. You don't feel happy. You don't feel alive. You feel burdened instead. The new way of being, the original way of being, the original way that you and I were designed to live is love-driven. And when you're living in a love-driven manner, you're living unconditionally. You're not preoccupied with the conditions and circumstances taking place outside of you. You're seeking to live your life from a space of acceptance. I don't say you have to like everything, but at the end of the day, more or less, we need to approach the things, the people in our life, from a space of acceptance. And you're living in a space of support for yourself and for other people. Above all, you feel really, really good. Why do you feel good? Because love is the natural manner in which you and I are intended to live. There was a lady frantically calling her husband on his cell phone who was driving his car. And she said, "Herman, I just heard that there is a car going the wrong way on Interstate 77. And Herman responds by saying, "Heck, sweetheart, it's not one car, it's hundreds of them." You see, it's important for us to realize, my friends, that the world at large has chosen the way of fear, has chosen the way of conditioning and judgment, and everything that comes along with that. A choice for love is going to have you move in the opposite direction of the vast majority of the world. And that's why, if you want to live in this manner, initially at least, until others ultimately catch on, you got to be a rebel for love. You got to be willing to go against all the conditioning. You know, when you get caught up in a judgment, have you noticed how easy it is to find other individuals to rally around you and support you in your judgment? That was terrible. That was wrong. You have every right to feel the way that you do. You have every right to be angry, to be fearful, to be upset. You see, everybody is going in the direction of fear, and you may at times find or at least feel as though you're the only one going in the direction of love. So it takes courage. It takes flat-out bravery. It takes a willingness to go against the grain of the fearful conditioning that the majority of the world has received, that has taken us away from this natural state of love, of being lovely. So the question is, would you rather be right? Would you rather be justified? Or would you rather be loving? It's important to do a little, I think, inventory, love inventory, I guess I could call it, every now and then, to look at where we might be withholding love. And sometimes we got to go back a little ways because there are things that come up that we may have thought that we forgave and became loving toward. And I'm reminded of this story, and it's going to take something for me to share it. I don't think I've shared it from this platform before, but I know I've shared it with individuals. It was almost 15 years ago that I first waltzed and walked into Unity on the Bay, and I came from up north just a little ways at Unity of the Palm Beaches in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I remember it was a little overwhelming, coming down to the city of Miami, and Unity on the Bay was significantly larger than the ministry I'd been serving in Palm Beach. But I remember standing up that very first morning, and I said, "Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unity of the Palm Beaches." It was terrible. It was one of those things where it just came out of my mouth, and I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. So I took a moment, and I paused, and I pulled myself together, and went on with the talk. All right, so I finished, and when I got back after the service, people were going, "I can't believe you said that. You just called Unity on the Bay, Unity of the Palm Beaches on your first Sunday. That's just not cool." And I'm down, I'm coming on myself. I can't believe I did this, okay? I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating. 3 weeks later, I'm standing on the platform, Unity on the Bay. "Good morning, Unity of the Palm Beaches." And it's like, oh God, it happened again. And I remember I was pulled aside after that service, and someone got very serious with me and said, "Look, you got to stop saying Unity of the Palm Beaches when you stand up in front of Unity on the Bay." Well, to tell you the truth, it actually happened one more time. And I beat myself up over that time and time again. The reality is, even years after it happened, I would still every now and then remember those 3 Sundays when I got up and did the unforgivable. Friends, we're all human, We're all, to some degree, products of the conditioning that surrounds us. It's so important to be easy on ourselves and to be able to love ourselves even when we think we've really screwed up. Let the judgment go. I'd rather be happy. I'd rather be loving. I know during this time, perhaps this is true for you too, I've been connecting with a lot of people that I haven't connected with for years. And recently I was in conversation over the phone with a friend of mine from high school, and we had not talked to each other for years, but we had started to reconnect periodically by phone. And in this particular conversation, this friend says to me, "I really appreciate that we're reconnecting again, but I have to let you know, I remember that time," and understand, friends, this was almost 50 years ago, that this encounter that I'm about to describe, wherein, and I'll spare you the details, this individual believed that my behavior toward them was uncaring, arrogant, deceitful, dismissive, and they just had to fess up. 50 years ago this was, that this encounter took place. Now, the moment they started calling me uncaring and arrogant and deceitful and dismissive, I began to move into judgment. I began to move into a reaction. I began to move into defensiveness. I could actually feel it building up through my body, through the cells of my body, and the resistance and the pushing against. So what I had to do is what I'm always telling you to do. Breathe. I didn't breathe audibly like that, so I couldn't be heard over the phone. I was breathing silently. But I just breathed, and I let there be a little bit of silence. And I allowed myself to feel the defensiveness, and I realized, and this is after 66 years of practicing this stuff, that I was finally able to say, I'm in front of an opportunity to choose a loving response. So I took first I said, and this is something I learned in therapy years ago. Okay, after all of this came out about this incident from 50 years ago, is there more? I was told that's what you're supposed to say. Is there more? Hardest thing in the world when somebody's blasting you to say, is there more? Is there more that you would like to tell me? So I said that, and I got a little bit more of the remembrances of that experience, which I really didn't feel that was a part of me that wanted to say, I've learned something, and that is that you're actually seeing yourself in me. Total defensiveness, right? So I just took one more breath, and I said, I'm so sorry that you felt harmed. And I'm sorry for any part that I might have played in that. It was never my intention, and I love you. It didn't end there. It went on for a bit longer. But ultimately, you see, it doesn't matter whether it was 50 years ago, whether it was 15 years ago, whether it was yesterday. The real question is, loving, the new way of being, the loving way of being, is a series of little tiny small choices that we make in terms of how we react to circumstances and situations around us all the time. Gabby Bernstein says this: fear and separation are a pattern that must be interrupted on a moment-to-moment basis. When we fully commit to shift the pattern through prayer and meditation, we begin to rely on love more than fear. Love becomes our default, and we can redirect our thoughts and energy quickly to return to our own truth. So you see, the only reason that our natural response, our default right now, is one of fear and one of judgment and one of defensiveness is because we've become deeply ingrained in that. So we have to find a way to become more deeply ingrained in the experience of love so that it becomes more and more our natural response. It doesn't mean it's going to be right there for us in each and every moment, but it means we'll at least be able to recognize that the playing field is set up for us to make a loving choice, a loving decision to move in a loving direction. And the way that we acclimate ourselves into this new way of being is through prayer and meditation. And the reason it works so effectively is because prayer and meditation allow us to withdraw our attention and our focus from the external world of conditions, of circumstances, of likes and dislikes, of good and bad, and clear our minds of all the mental confusion that is causing these experiences, sinking and settling slowly and sweetly into the love, the state of love that is our natural birthright. And that's why prayer and meditation is a practice that we enter into again and again to absorb ourselves into this awareness of God's presence, the presence of love in our lives, in such a way that it begins to take precedence over any sense of fear, of judgment, of condemnation. Gabby tells us in the pages of The Universe Has Your Back to witness our fear without judgment. These are the ways in which we can employ practices that will support us in allowing love to be our default and love to be our natural way of living. She says, do I look through the eyes of love or do I look through the eyes of judgment? Fear and judgment are close companions because it's only when you're making judgments that you're going to move into a space of fear, and it's only when you're fearful that you're going to be in a state of judgment. So you witness yourself. Here I am having this reaction, no judgment. This is not good or bad. I'm not good or bad. I'm not less spiritual today than I was yesterday because this is where I'm at. No judgment. Observation, awareness. I want to be aware of how I'm responding to the situation of this individual. Second, forgive the thought. And that's as simple as just recognizing, whoa, I've chosen poorly, or I'm about to choose poorly. I'm about to step into judgment and condemnation here, and that's not the space. I want to live from a new way of being, not the old fear-driven lifestyle, but the new love-driven lifestyle. So I am going to choose again. I'm going to choose again. I'm going to make the choice for love. Remember, a loving world begins with a succession of little tiny loving actions and loving responses. And then the next thing she suggests is to see the person or the circumstance as if you'd never seen it before. It's easier to love when you're seeing somebody for the first time. Have you noticed? First date, head over heels, I'm in love with you. 25 years later, married life, who the hell are you? So what we want to do is don't allow that conditioning, don't allow the past to cover up the love that's present in the moment. See the individual like you've never seen them before, so you can't bring any judgment from the past or from past experiences that you may have shared with them. And then she emphasizes again the importance of meditation. And I was strolling through the pages of one of my favorite books called The Way of Mastery. And I came across this simple exercise. It's so helpful, and I've used it many times, and I'm using it now more than ever. It's where we simply breathe in, and as we breathe in, we say to ourselves, silently or aloud, depending on the circumstance, I accept Breathe out the love of God. Breathe in, I accept. Breathe out the love of God. Somebody does something that triggers you, that you want to react to, that you want to justify your defensiveness about. Stop yourself in your tracks. Don't go there. That's the first step, as Course in Miracles says, into the descent to hell. You stop right there in your tracks and breathe in. You can do this silently. You can do it right in the presence of somebody that you feel has offended you. I accept the love of God. I accept the love of God. Inhale, I accept. Exhale, the love of God. In the Way of Mastery, we read these beautiful words. Therefore, fear not, for you are the creator of your journey. You are the one given the infinite power of the mind of God to see through the eyes of love, to rest in perfect safety, and to embrace all that comes to you in the simple reality that you have called it to you. A challenge, perhaps, but always an opportunity to expand your commitment to love. He goes on to say, and where love is chosen so that you want nothing else, you will see nothing else but a lovely world, infinite in dimension, sparkling in clarity, radiant in beauty. You will look upon it and say, behold, it is very good. You want a more loving world? In each and every moment, make the choice for love. My name is Chris Jackson, and I approve of this message.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay, a spiritual community located in Miami, Florida. Unity on the Bay is supported by the generosity of its community. If you'd like to make a donation or learn more about Unity on the Bay, please visit unityonthebay.org. You can also follow Unity on the Bay on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for even more positive spiritual inspiration. Until next time, thanks for listening and many blessings. Namaste.